Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 4 of the 2024 Giro d'Italia, brought to you by Bicycle, the largest global marketplace for pre-owned bikes. With over 20,000 high-quality pre-owned and refurbished bikes, Bicycle connects the buyers and sellers to make the buying and selling process easy, safe, and convenient. Now let's get into today's stage 4, because at 190 kilometers, about 120 miles in length, we know it's going to be a stage for the sprinters to highlight if they can get over the most difficult task on today's stage 4. It's the Capomele that's going to start with just under 4 kilometers to go, at 1.5 kilometers long, and then just a little drag at the top. It's going to summit with about 2 kilometers to go. Then it's a curvy coastal road going downhill all the way into the last 700 meters, where it's a straight line shoot into the finish of today's stage 4. But can the sprinters hold it together going up the Capomele, and will they try any funky tricks like we saw in yesterday's stage 3, where a group of 25s going up the road with 8 of the favorite sprinters here at the Giro d'Italia? Well, when the cameras come on, we see 3 riders up in the front. Lilian Calmy-Jane, the French rider for Intermarché, he's up there. He's got some company in Stefan Nabod from EF Education. Then Polti Cometa have Francisco Munoz up there to add 3 guys in the front breakaway. They got about a 5-minute gap when we start getting up to the climb. But let me back the cameras up a little bit, because with about 130 kilometers to go on today's stage, we got some incredibly good news, because Jonas Vingegaard put up on his Twitter account that he's back on the bike and riding outside. Guys, we got more than 50 days left to the Tour de France, and the rider from Visma bike is outside training. Now, when you look at the picture, the most important thing to look at, he hasn't gained an ounce. This kid is so professional that the whole time throughout the 12 days at the hospital and now his rehabilitation time at home, he looks fantastic when you see the picture. He says he is looking forward to trying to give his best to get ready for the Tour de France. And to me, while I'm sitting on the Chesterfield, I think he's going to make it. He looks fantastic. So we could have all 4 of the favorites ready for the July race, the Tour de France, the big one, with 4 of the most magnificent riders that I've seen throughout my career all arriving at the Tour de France at the same time. Now let's get back into the racing, because the 3 riders are going up the only category climb here in the middle of the stage, and we're going to see at the top of the climb, it's Lilian Calmy-Jane with 102 kilometers to go. He's going to take maximum KOM points. Now when we look down the hill, if we go all the way back to the beginning of the race, it was Soudal Quickstep on the front with Peter Siri, but shortly after that, once the climb started proper, we saw Jan Traknik get on the front. Gabriel Xavier from Lidl Trek, he's on the front. They're doing damage control to the 3 riders up the way in the breakaway. As Lilian Calmy-Jane, once they start to descend, he's going to drop off, and that's going to leave 2 riders up front. But as the peloton is going up the climb, we see Fabio Jakobsen, DSM. He was hurting right away from the pace set up there from Lidl Trek and Visma bike. So Fabian Jakobsen's having an incredibly difficult stage 4 here at the Giro d'Italia, and his stage 3 wasn't looking much better. Now, when we look at Fabio Jakobsen, he has 2 teammates with him, so you know he's going to get back on. But how much energy will the sprinter use getting back onto the back of the peloton? Well, as the peloton goes over the top of the KOM climb, coming down the descent, before the next little bump halfway down the descent, we're going to see a crash, and that's Jonathan Narvaez there that was wearing the pink leaders jersey and won stage 1 here at the Giro d'Italia. He'll get back up on his bike and get back to the peloton. Then it starts getting wet, nasty, miserable road conditions, and we see a big crash coming into the right turn with about 25 riders going down. Main guys to pay attention to, Ben O'Connor from Decathlon AG2R, he went down, gets back on his bike and gets going. Then the camera finds Biniam Girmay, the Eritrean, on the left side of the road. He's taking a bit longer, but we'll see him get back on his bike. His shorts were ripped up on the right side. Then probably 2-3 kilometers later, the Eritrean crashes again in the left turn. You see him lose his front tire. He's sliding all the way across the road. When his bike finally comes to a stop, he jumps up. He's not happy. He's going to call it an end here at the Giro d'Italia, as we see the Eritrean's not going to finish today's stage 4. Now, back up at the peloton, what was happening? Well, it's split in half coming down the descent. We'll see Kian Utebrooks come through the time bonification point sprint here as he gets 3rd at this time and gains an extra second. That'll change his position on the general classification up in the top 10. But up front, the 2 riders in the breakaway, they're still going full gas as we're about 50 kilometers to go, and they're reaching the coast here, the famous coast roads that normally start the first of the 5 monuments, Milan-San Remo. With those 2 riders up front, the peloton's coming back together. They weren't panicking too much. I'm going to assume it was just a split from one of the crashes back there, or the technical dangerous roads caused some of the riders riders that back off a little bit, but the peloton up front had UAE Team Emirates up there. Nobody was panicking. The groups come back together. We got a whole peloton intact when they hit the sunny coast roads here of Milan-San Remo. Now, as they're coming down the coast, we're going to see up front the two riders. They still got a gap of just around 2 minutes, but the peloton behind starting to get nervous with 20 kilometers to go. They're curb to curb, and the whole time, Tadej Pogačar, UAE Team Emirates, and Team Ineos were always at the front. We get under 13 kilometers to go. And we're going to see the sprinter from UAE Team Emirates, Melogno. He has a bike issue back there with a mechanical. Now the commentator, Sean Kelly, says that at this moment, it's almost impossible to get back to the front of the peloton. I'm sitting on the Chesterfield. I'm like, Sean Kelly, didn't you win Milan-San Remo? I'm pretty certain you did. Of course you could get back to the front. It's not difficult along the coast to get to the front. The most difficult problem when you're doing Milan-San Remo and you're coming down the coast road, it's curb to curb and nasty, like we see here on stage 4, is not getting to the front, because once a gap opens up on one side of the road or the other, left or right, if you got the legs, you punch it and you go straight to the front. The problem is staying at the front. And the problem is, if you don't have a team like UAE Team Emirates, Tadej Pogačar, once we start getting under about 8 kilometers to go, Tadej Pogačar's on his own, with the exception that he has Michael Bjerg around him, sometimes behind him, sometimes in front of him. But we will see the sprinter Melogno get back up to the front, because, of course, it's not difficult to get to the front. It's difficult staying at the front, Sean Kelly. Now, we start coming under 7 kilometers to go. Tadej Pogačar sitting about the 7th row back there. Now, what's he doing? Why is he always on the left side of the road? If you're sitting on the Chesterfield, you're like, Tadej Pogačar always on the left. The reason he's always on the left, if you don't have a team to keep it fast at the front and keep you out of trouble, you want to stay either left side or right side so the Slovenian could easily move up. If there's crashes, there's possibilities of maybe jumping up on the sidewalks and avoiding some of the riders that have crashed in front of you. But mainly it's because you know there'll always be a second or two when the peloton will narrow up somewhere and maybe something will open up on the right side or the left side of the road. So if you're on one side of the peloton, you can find your way quickly, especially if you have the kind of legs that Tadej Pogačar has, because when I did Milan-San Remo back in the 90s, I was able to get to the front and get to the back whenever I wanted to, but I just couldn't stay at the front, because once you get in the middle, you got 5 guys or 10 guys this way and you got 5 or 10 this way. It's so wide on the roads here along the coast that you get the washing effect and you'll get pushed to the back because you can't find your way out. But if you're smart like Tadej Pogačar, you stay on the left, the opening will always open up sooner or later. Now we're getting about 5 kilometers to go. 2 riders in front did a spectacular job here on stage 4, but now they're getting wrapped up. We come into just about 4 kilometers to go as the road starts proper, starting up on Capamele here. We see it's Visma's Tim van Dijk at the front. While he's at the front, look at the guy just behind him. That's Filippo Ganna from Team Ineos. Behind him is Geraint Thomas, and behind him is stage 1 winner Jonathan Narvaez back there, who crashed earlier in the stage, so clearly he must be feeling better right now. Now as Tim van Dijk starts to climb proper, he pulls off hard to the left after doing a ton of work for Olaf Koy throughout this coastal road. Then we see Filippo Ganna look over his shoulder, sees Geraint Thomas is there, throws in a huge acceleration, immediately gets a gap on the peloton. And when we look back at the peloton, we see it's two-door cycling with 2 guys on the front, a 3rd guy about 4th or 5th position there, as the small team, Swiss team, is on the front pulling. You know, Fabian Cancellara is jumping up and down on the Chesterfield right now, hoping they can put on another show here on stage 4 of the Giro d'Italia. Well, we look back up at Ganna. He's got a gap of about 5 seconds. Then we see behind Bora Hansgrohe, Danny Van Poppel throws in a big, massive attack trying to go across up to the Ineos rider. Only problem is, if I take you all the way back to the beginning of the stage, Danny Van Poppel, you should have been paying attention to the riders meeting in the bus when we see Dan Lloyd talking about the tactics of Bora Hansgrohe once he throws it over to Robbie McEwen. Robbie McEwen, the green jersey wearer of the 2006 Tour de France. This is his jersey right here from stage 17. Look it up. It was phenomenal, and I got it hanging on the wall. Well, Robbie McEwen said that Danny Van Poppel needs to be following Johnny Milan in the finish of today's stage 4. But right now, Danny Van Poppel's trying to bridge across to Filippo Ganna up front. Now, we'll see one other rider jump across the gap there. As we see, it's Pasqualon back there trying to bridge up to Danny Van Poppel, who's blowing. He goes straight past Danny Van Poppel, but still can't get quite up to the back wheel of Filippo Ganna, as he's about 3 seconds gap. We look further down the hill there. Who's pulling on the peloton? Israel Premier Tech has come to the front, and they got Pasqualon brought back. So Filippo Ganna is going solo as he goes over the top with about 2 kilometers to go. It's going to be a technical, curvy coastal road descent, as we've always become accustomed watching on Milan San Marino, the first spring race. And we look back, we see Alpecin de Koenig was on the front, but they blew up. It's time for Little Trek to get on the front with 1.5 kilometers to go. 3 riders. The most important rider to pay attention to, Johnny Milan, sitting third position. Second, just in front of him, is his last lead-out man, Simone Consoni. And when I take you back to yesterday, stage 3, these guys were a little bit discombobulated back there. They did find their way to the front. They did try to help Johnny Milan out, but Johnny Milan ended up spinning about 500 meters in the wind when he went all the way to the left with his 2 teammates, Simone Consoni, leading him out down the left. Then he had to jump all the way to the right, spent 500 meters there on yesterday's stage and didn't win the stage. Well, now he's sitting third wheel. Simone Consoni's hitting the front with about 800 meters to go, and he's got in his sights Filippo Ganna, but they still haven't wrapped him up, with Simone Consoni throwing everything into it. 600 meters to go is coming up really fast because it was all descent and the road starting to straighten up. Filippo Ganna is basically brought back from Simone Consoni, but they still haven't quite caught the back wheel there, Filippo Ganna. Now the action starts happening in the peloton right here around 600 to 500 meters to go. I want to bring you just a little bit further back to, we see the duo back there of Christophe Laporte sitting about 7th position. It's Christophe Laporte and Olaf Koy. Christophe Laporte looks left, right over his shoulder, looking back to make sure that Koy is there and to see what's happening with this competition back there as he sees the acceleration coming up the right side. Once he sees that, he gets a little blocked in. He started to go to the right, but he decides to go left with about 500 meters to go. We go up to the front. That's Simone Consoni passing there Filippo Ganna as he's got first position, and we're looking at Johnny Milan sitting second, his sprinter. Now, as we start looking as Filippo Ganna's drop back, we're going to see Christophe Laporte. He's going to shoot all the way from the right as he's coming out on the left side. Now his teammate Olaf Koy, what's he got to do? Well, first he's going to bump there the shoulder of Chimolai from Movistar. Once he bumps him, he ends up going to the right. That's Enrico there from Bardiani. He gives a little bump there, and now he's got a clean line following his teammate in front of him, Christophe Laporte. Laporte's throwing in a huge acceleration, and with 300 meters to go, he's starting to come up even there with Little Trek, Simone Consoni, who's starting to blow and is ready to pull off at 300 meters. That means Christophe Laporte's in the hot seat here, sitting first position, and he's doing a fantastic job for his sprinter back there, Olaf Koy. Olaf Koy then goes straight over to the right side shoulder there of Johnny Milan. These guys are bumping shoulders, bumping elbows, and with 250 meters to go, they've decided now is the time to start their sprint, because at 200 meters to go, they're coming past Christophe Laporte, and the 2 riders are going side by side all the way to the right side of the fencing. Now let me back it up just a little bit, because I got to show you what was happening to Tim Miller, yesterday's stage 1 winner and wearing the points sprint jersey here on stage 4 of the Giro d'Italia. Well, Tim Miller was coming up with his teammate at the same time where Christophe Laporte was starting to go left and made it through the gap. Now we look at what happened to Tim Miller. Tim Miller came from the right and followed almost the identical path there of the duo riders from Visma Bike, but had to come a few seconds behind. Now as we come up to about 150 meters to go, we'll see leading is going to be Johnny Milan on the right. They're a little staggered. Johnny Milan, Olaf Koy sitting second to the left. Then to the left of him, Tim Miller is in the picture with about 125 meters to go. We'll see second place there. Olaf Koy's legs start to blow. But look who came into the picture. Now it's still staggered with 100 meters to go, with, of course, Johnny Milan sitting first there on the right side. Then now we got in second place is Tim Miller. Now in third is Caden Groves. How did Caden Groves get here? Let's back the film up just a little bit more, because as we saw Tim Miller coming through on the left side, well, Caden Groves found his way from the center, moved over to the left, and now with 100 meters to go, it's a 3-way drag race again, as finally when we get into about 50, this is the time for Tim Miller's legs to blow, and Johnny Milan is still going hard, but we look all the way over to the left. Caden Groves, Alpecin de Koenig, he's coming fast at 10 meters to go. Caden Groves throws his bike, but Johnny Milan waits a little bit longer, throws his bike later, and wins today's stage 4 for Lidl Trek. Congratulations. It was a powerful, powerful victory here on stage 4 of the Giro d'Italia for Johnny Milan, who left his last team, like he said yesterday, stage 3, to come over here to have his own train at Lidl Trek, while Simone Consoni, you were money here on today's stage 4 to help Johnny Milan win today's stage 4 in a fantastic style. Guys, he did some heavy bumping back there with Olaf Koy on the shoulders and the elbows all clean. No relegations needed here on stage 4 for either one of these two riders. In my book, is 100% clean. But the bumping was still there. Johnny Milan's power was still there, and he drove it all the way to the line as we saw Olaf Koy die. Then we saw Tim Miller die. We saw Caden Groves accelerating all the way to the line, but just a little bit too late as the Italian rider up there from Lidl-Trek wins another stage of the Giro d'Italia, his first in 2024. But I'm sure there's more to come if he continues with this kind of form. When we look at the GC classification, nothing changed up there for Tadej Pogacar. He's still up there in the race leader's pink jersey. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll see you for tomorrow's stage 5 of the Giro d'Italia.